I'd like to welcome everyone to our Agile and Hybrid Project Management demo and webinar today. So we really appreciate your participation and feel that you'll be able to understand how you can tap into the power of the ServiceNow platform and managing both Agile as well as waterfall and hybrid projects. So thanks again for attending today. So what we'll be doing today is really providing you with a brief introduction, results positive, those of you that might not be aware of our organization. Then we'll jump in and I'll provide a brief introduction around Agile and hybrid project management. And then I'll be turning it over to Russ to walk us through the demonstration. So thanks again, and I'd like to introduce you briefly to Results Positive. We are a consulting organization specializing in helping customers implement impactful business technology solutions. And so we do that through our advisory services with assessments and roadmaps, focus on implementation and integration. We also do custom app development, managed services, and SaaS. And so as a business partner with ServiceNow, as you can see today, we also help in selling their product and then helping customers get value out of their investments through our health checks, our implementations, as well as managed services and training. In terms of areas that we focused in on, technology business management, which includes project portfolio management, agile development, application portfolio management. We also assist organizations with the various application lifecycle from development to various automated testing tools for functional testing as well as performance testing. We also help our organizations with their service management needs around IT service management and customer service management. So we've been doing business with organizations for over the last 14 years and helping many organizations, both large and small, get value and be able to accomplish their desired business outcomes with their technology investments. So what I wanted to jump in here and is talk about Agile and hybrid project management. So within the ServiceNow platform, you've got the ability to really be able to manage all different types of projects. And so that's what we see as one of the differentiators of the ServiceNow PPM solution. So from an Agile perspective, it can support various methodologies with Scrum, Kanban. We're going to talk a little about SAFe today as well, which is a scaled Agile framework for enterprises. From a traditional perspective, you can really support any one of your different waterfall methodologies. PMBOK is one that's set up out of the box, so we'll highlight that today for you as well. And then last but not least, we see more and more organizations focusing on hybrid project management. So the combination of waterfall and Scrum, we jokingly call that Scrumfall, might be iterative development. It might be a combination of waterfall and Agile all within the same project. And the reason we're seeing a lot of focus around hybrid is that you have PMO organizations that need to still report on overall financials and resource management, but at the same time, allowing the teams to really use their execution method of choice. So the combination of waterfall and Agile really comes into play. So just to kind of a few highlights here, Russ will be giving us more information on this as he walks through the demonstration. But within the platform, you're able to really manage these Agile, traditional as well as hybrid projects. And what's nice within the platform, if you haven't used it before, is you're able to set up these visual task boards, which are basically Kanban boards, to really manage almost any entity within the ServiceNow platform. So whether that be just managing your demands, managing your projects, managing tasks, you can set up those boards. Here, what we're looking at on this particular screenshot is actually, say, your daily stand-up board, being able to manage that in the system. Next, here, I want to go over and kind of highlight just briefly around hybrid project management. So from an overall project plan, project schedule perspective, you can see here with this particular project that I have my traditional waterfall activities, but then here in the middle I have a couple of agile sprints, and then I have continued waterfall activities. So I'm able to really manage both of those here effectively, all in the same solution without any integrations. Also, many of you might be asking, how do we integrate with other Agile tools? So we have some out-of-the-box integrations, say with Jira as an example, where that you can bring that information in and get that visibility that you might need from a PMO perspective or an overall project management perspective, so that you can see all the Agile stories being worked on, as well as your individual tasks. And next here, just wanted to highlight a couple of the other views that you have in the system. We'll also be highlighting these from a demonstration perspective. So here's I'm coming in and managing from an Agile development perspective, as you'd expect, wanting to manage your release burn down or your sprint burn down charts, being able to do that and manage the velocity of the team. So that's a key core functionality which is available here within the solution. Next, being able to manage those daily stand-ups, being able to understand the progress of your various stories, make those updates, as well as actually assign stories to team members as a part of those daily stand-ups. So very easy to manage, very easy to assign work so that you can continually move forward with your sprints and your Agile development. What's also nice here is you move things from phase to phase. You can also identify some required elements, such as, say, success criteria. And so if that isn't filled out, you'll be prompted to fill that information out as you move those stories onto completion. Next, just to highlight briefly here from a Scaled Agile framework perspective, those of you that might not be familiar with the Scaled Agile framework, the whole idea here, and just to keep it simple for everyone, is for organizations that have many different Scrum teams or Agile development teams, once that starts to occur, there is a need for additional oversight and governance. And so then that's where the program level comes into play. So say you start having, 10, 20, 50 different sprint teams, then you might need to start managing overall program and program oversight. And then once you have multiple programs and those being managed, here it could be across multiple products, then we see organizations looking at having an overall portfolio level in terms of planning as well as oversight. So those are some of the solutions that ServiceNow has in previous versions, as well as the portfolio component is being rolled out here with the Madrid solution. So now I'd like to turn it over to Russ here for the demonstration.
Thanks, John. Good morning and afternoon, everybody. I'm going to be walking through, as John mentioned, the hybrid projects and Agile project management, Agile management within ServiceNow. So I'm currently logged in as Eileen Modern, who is a product owner within our demo environment. And first, I'll talk a little bit about some of the, just the reporting and capabilities that you see out of the box. And so this is showing sort of a release burn down and then a sprint burn down, and you can choose your different groups or teams that you want to see and the sprints that they're working on, and the actual burn down chart associated with that. And then you can drill into those details as well. And then more from managing at the stories level, we're looking at, the ability to look across, in this case, I'm looking across all products, across all releases, and looking specifically at a team called the HR engineering team. And I can see their total story points and their story count, and even get a visualization of what the story points are from their status, whether they're testing or ready for testing or draft, work in progress or complete, just to sort of get that visualization. You can also do filtering here on the side to choose different visualizations. And then just another look at sort of the group velocity, where you're able to visualize velocity of your groups or teams as you go through sprints. And so those are just some examples of the out-of-the-box analytics and reporting available with the Agile solution. So this is what the screen I'm in is called an Agile board, and the next thing I'll step into is just sort of backlog planning and grooming, where you can basically plan and groom your backlog within the scope of a screen here. So we have a couple of things here. We have, we can filter it by epic. So if I wanted to see all of the the backlog items for the employee portal, then I get to those specific stories, and you can update these stories as necessary to groom the backlog from a story points perspective, or any other information that you want to add around that. So you can see that this is ability to enter completed training. It has 8 story points associated with a project and a phase, and this is part of what we'll show within the hybrid project management, where associating this story to that project gives you visibility of that story on the project side. So this is where you would do your backlog grooming. And if we go back to all records, you can also filter this screen and say, I want to work on all of the stories that don't have story points, as an example. You can also see in here that these are actually problems that were marked as defects. And so leveraging the ServiceNow platform, you not only can just create stories within the Agile framework, but you can also bring things like problems and have those be marked as defects and in the backlog as well. And so that's what you're seeing here by the red problem records that came through, likely an incident problem type flow. So that's the backlog. You can see all stories, and then you can see individual teams and their associated backlog as well. And then just review and groom the backlog here. The next thing I'll cover is sprint planning. So once you've groomed the backlog, then you can go into sprint planning. And in this case, I'm planning for the CRM engineering team. And you can see the current open sprint here at the top, which is CRM Sprint 5, and then incremental sprints that are scheduled for the team. And we actually can also expand these and see that we have stories already slotted into those sprints. And so when you're doing sprint planning, it's really as simple as saying, all right, we're going to take this groom story and we're going to put it into the current sprint, or we're going to put it into sprint 6, and it just moves that story into the sprint. And so that's really the process of drag and drop sprint planning from that perspective. So with a given team or an individual team, you can basically drag and drop the backlog stories into the sprint. And then when we get into sprint tracking, so once you've started a sprint, then you can get a visual task board view of what the stories look like as they're going through the process. And so within this visual task board, if you can do things like filtering, so you can click on a specific person and it'll filter just down to their tasks. You can see that it says filtering is on. You can do assignments here. So say, for example, this is for testing, and Cheryl is assigned to the story. We could also, for instance, assign Darren as an additional contact on that, or additional assignee on that story. And so within the visual task board, and then you can move the stories through their life cycle. So from draft into ready at the story level. And John mentioned this when he went through that it's popping up now, and you can have additional required fields as you go through the stages of the life cycle. So this is asking now for acceptance criteria. as an example. So you can then force those to be captured as you move through the life cycle. And so this is really what we look at from a sprint tracking perspective. And so as we review the analytics, then there's the backlog, grooming and planning, sprint planning, and then the sprint tracking. And then the next thing I'll cover here is a task progress board. So once you get, you know, underneath the stories, there's going to be a set of tasks that you build out as you do sprint planning. And so once those tasks are built out, we would leverage the task project board. And if you're assigned to a task, leverage this to move it through sort of its life cycle and capture. So you've got you know, draft, ready, work in progress, and complete. But you also have your planned hours, remaining hours, and actual hours. So you can actually add tasks here by simply clicking on create a task. I'll just call this, you know, I'll say it's planned for 8 hours, and I'll call it task 2. And submit that. Now you can see that we have another task that's in draft, that's planned. You can actually log your time directly from here too. So if you wanted to update the actual hours on a given task, you can say that I had 5 hours on that and save it. And then it will calculate your remaining hours and planned hours. And these two you can drag and drop through the life cycle. So if you move this into ready, and so as a individual or as a contributor who's assigned to these stories and tasks, then you can use this as your task planning and move it through the life cycle and capture the effort associated with the stories. So that's a quick overview of Agile. One thing I didn't sort of review up front, and I probably should have, is the Agile structure within ServiceNow is really made up of, and it's probably easier to look at it this way. It's made up of epics. Those epics then have, actually it starts with products, and then epics and themes, and then there's user stories and tasks associated with it. So I sort of went through all of those at a high level. And then the groups are your Agile teams that manage. And when you look at your Agile groups, excuse me, it's assigning basically team members to the Agile team, and then you identify their average points per sprint. So you have the ability, if you have somebody who's, you know, only part-time on the team, that you could identify that here, and then that would come into the overall capacity and velocity of the particular group. So next I'm going to switch to impersonate a user who's a project manager, and it's Paul Martin in this case. I'm going to sort of walk you through the project management piece, and then we'll talk about the Agile piece of the hybrid project management. So I'm going to go into what's called the project workspace initially, and I'm going to be working with this particular project called Upgrade All Oracle 10G Databases. And so what you initially land on is a project overview page, and so this is the peer project management that shows you, your risks and issues and actions, and then which project members are allocated, team members are allocated from a resource management perspective, and things like overdue tasks and milestones and upcoming tasks. So all of these you can drill down into the associated records that make these up within the solution. But one thing I wanted to look at was this is actually set up as a hybrid project, and I'm going to start first with the planning council, where I have my more traditional work breakdown structure that shows our major phases of initiating, planning, executing, And then you can see I have this Agile development sprint. And this is basically where we put in the tie to the Agile solution. So if I switch back to the project workbench here, I'll show you. We basically have all of those main phases of the project, and we can see the project tasks associated with those phases. And then when we get into the Agile development, we actually see the stories that are loaded into the sprints associated with that phase. And so you can actually see and visualize the status of those stories as they go through the Agile development. And so it's really about creating, in this case, Agile phases or test phases that tie to sprints associated with teams. And you can even do things like roll up the dates from the stories so that you get real visibility of how you're executing for that phase within the project management solution. A couple of other things I'll cover here just while I'm in projects is the resources and the financials. So within the resource planning, you can plan resources for this by group or by user or by role. And so in this case, we planned, a group of database, and we have requirements in FTEs that identify the group of database analysts that we need to support this project. And you can see that if we change this to hours, it might make more sense to visualize that. And so we need 300 hours of a database analyst across this project. And this is currently in planning this request. And so what you see below when you click on that is the capacity and availability of those team members that have been grouped into that database group. And so you can see their availability and capacity and actually do those assignments. Now, from a project manager persona, I can't do the assignments, but with a resource management capability, you can actually do the assignment. So the project manager is really responsible for identifying the size of the team and the estimated effort, and then the resource manager would associate those members with the team. And so this is for that high level resource planning to get a visualization across the organization of where you have gaps within your resources. And then from a financial perspective, we have the ability, so each of those resource plans will actually automatically calculate a labor cost, and you can see those here. You also have the ability to add incremental costs, whether it be via an integration or manually add incremental cost plans to the solution so that you can see, you can add hardware, software, labor or non-labor stuff associated with the project as well, both from a forecast and an actual perspective on the project. And you have the ability to see the KPIs and visualize this, whether you're looking at it quarterly, yearly, or monthly. And then you can actually even look at the total actual, the quantity, whether or not it's recurring. So you have the ability to break these down. And right now this is by group by project, but you can actually say something like, show me all of the CapEx labor that I have and OpEx and software and hardware, so you can get breakdowns like that within the financial plan for the project. So that's really the key component of the Agile and doing hybrid project management is the ability to see the Agile work that's happening from the project management side. And then I will, next I'm going to go in and talk about the SAFe. And so I'm going to switch environments here. And with the SAFe project management, or with SAFe Agile management, they have added the ability to do that at a portfolio level. And so once again, excuse me, once again, I'm logged in as Eileen, who's my product owner, and she has the ability to see for the portfolio called travel, the board, the safe board, and these are at the epic level. So you basically have the ability to see all of the epics, and you can see the status, whether in review, analysis, backlog, or they're in implementation. And so if I look at one of these epics, for instance, hotel listings, and I drill into this and see this epic that's in implementation from a portfolio level contains a set of features, and those features contain the set of stories that are being implemented. But this is really at the portfolio level where you're doing the epic level planning. And the other thing I'll show you about the epics within SAFE is the out-of-the-box capability to really leverage this weighted shortest job first score and be able to plan in sort of a big room planning scenario by this scoring, where you're looking at the value to the business, how much risk reduction there is to the organization, the time criticality, and then really dividing that by the size of the job to get that score. And so that's really what's used for purposes of, you know, if we sort this, we can see the highest impact features that we could implement associated. Both at an epic and a feature level, you can plan at that level. The other side is the just maintenance of the overall backlog from an epic perspective. And then once you've defined those portfolio level epics, then you actually do an agile release train. And this is where you basically create the program increments to implement features. And so here you can bring features and drag them into the program increments, and you can see the features by the epic. So if we look at just hotel listing, we see all of those, or we can see all features. You also have then the ability to do within that agile release train, you can see the features in the same type of way. So you have funnel analysis, backlog, what's in implementation, what's in validation on staging. And you can configure these to be whatever you want, with the exception of backlog. Backlog is one that a lane that has to stay because it shows up on the backlog. And then finally, you can jump into big room planning. This is really where you plan that program increment and plan stories associated with it. And within this, you can also create dependencies. And so in this case, I'm looking at a big room planning exercise for program increment 1, and I have all of my teams here. So I have data team A and B, front end team A, and say for instance that this remove duplicate cities, you could actually create the dependencies here and visualize the dependencies. So I clicked on the create simple input box, and I can within here then add the dependencies. So I can add dependent stories to this, and I forget the name of the one I was going to add. I'm going to go grid it again. So remove duplicate cities as an example. So I can add that dependency, and then you'll be able to visualize that dependency on the big room planning board, so you can see that these have dependencies, and you can you know, figure out where these fit in, so that you have program increment 1 with 5 sprints across all those teams, and you can plan the stories across those from an agile perspective. And you can even look at, the program increment 1, you can do the backlog by team. So messaging team A, data team A as an example. And then you see here the stories that are being executed within those from a team perspective. And then you get finally down to the sprint tracking for a given team. Let me see if I can find one that I have the sprint tracking for a given team where you do the actual sprint tracking as well. So I don't have any current sprints, but that's sort of a high-level overview of the portfolio level safe capabilities within ServiceNow.
Wanted to first thank everyone for attending our webinar today, and hopefully that you're able to understand how you can manage your Agile and hybrid projects all on the single platform. So thanks again for attending. As I mentioned up front, we're a consulting organization, and we help organizations get value out of their technology investments. One way we do that is with our health check assessments, and so we're able to assess what you're using today, able to understand what your requirements are around Agile or hybrid project management, and then provide you with a roadmap. So if you're interested in looking at what your next steps should be and how you should look at implementing the solution, we can definitely help you with one of our health check and roadmaps. We also have a rapid start implementations. So if you're just looking to implement Agile, implement project management, we have various packages that we can help you there. It doesn't have to be a huge effort. Our most common rapid start packages are our 4-week and 6-week projects. Those are more out-of-the-box type of implementations, similar to what you saw today, with some configuration to make sure that you have some of the various attributes in tracking that work and categorizing that work based upon some of your own internal departments, etc., as well as that includes some configuration of workflow. So we look forward to those that are interested in implementing and being able to accelerate time to value with your implementations. We can help you with our rapid start implementation packages. In terms of where the customers normally start with their overall journey, basically each one of these areas here is a different starting point based on where you are today, but it can kind of flow in this fashion as well. So say after today, if you'd like to do a deep dive demo just with your organization and your requirements, we can schedule that discovery session and provide you with a one-on-one demo for your organization. Other organizations want to look at starting at the health check. They've already done some implementation, like to kind of understand where they're at and provide some input for themselves and executives on an overall roadmap so they continue to get more value out of the solution, as well as ways to improve their overall processes. And next, some organizations jump right into the rapid start. This is probably the most common. So jump right in and do an implementation using our rapid start packages. And then others are already in flight, and so they tap into our managed services or training services to assist with more adoption with their PPM solutions or Agile solutions. So there's different starting points, and we definitely look forward to assisting you with your PPM journey. And next, we do have a upcoming webinar in April. It's going to be focused on application portfolio management, and so feel free to register for that webinar. We're going to highlight how you can manage your application from a strategic perspective and making sure that you are supporting all your business capabilities to drive some of the digital transformations you have today, as well as from a bottom-up perspective in tying your applications into your CMDB and your configuration items. So we look forward to your participation next month. And then last but not least, thanks again for attending, and feel free to reach out to us if you are looking to identify next steps, whether it be a health check, an implementation, or a specific solution that you're looking to establish, such as the Agile integration with Jira as an example. So thanks again for attending today.